Man knelt alone on a frozen dock. 12 years of stolen memory finally returning to him all at once. A private investigator was closing in on the truth, and a respected businessman, hiding 12 years of quiet theft behind a friendly smile, was about to lose everything he had spent over a decade protecting. If you have not watched parts 1 and 2 of this story yet, I would strongly encourage you to go back and start from the beginning, because everything you are about to hear will hit you far harder once you understand exactly what was buried beneath the water in Cedar Hollow. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you, and do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Margaret Callahan had not slept that night, ever since she had sent Ethan away from the boathouse. A cold, uneasy feeling had settled over her that she could not shake, no matter how many times she told herself she had made the only reasonable choice available to her. She sat alone at her kitchen table well past midnight, staring at the small stack of newspaper clippings the reporter had eventually shown her. The fabricated police record claiming Ethan had drifted from town to town preying on lonely, wealthy widows just like her. Something about the document had bothered her from the very first reading, though it had taken her hours sitting alone in the dark to finally understand exactly what it was. The dates did not line up. The fabricated record claimed Ethan had been active in a neighboring state during a specific 18-month window nearly a decade earlier, the exact same window of time that Shelter Records, which Margaret had quietly requested herself days earlier through Dana Reyes, placed him firmly within Michigan the entire time, moving slowly between exactly 3 counties, never once crossing state lines at all. It was a small detail, the kind of inconsistency a person in a hurry to believe the worst about someone might easily overlook. But Margaret had spent 12 years training herself to notice exactly the kinds of details other people overlooked, and by the time the first gray light of morning reached her kitchen window, she was already reaching for her phone to call Dana. She never got the chance to dial. A frantic knock at her front door interrupted her first, and when she opened it, she found Ethan standing on her porch, soaked through with cold sweat despite the freezing morning air, his eyes wide with a kind of urgency she had never once seen from him in the weeks she had known him. He did not wait for an invitation inside. He told her everything, right there on the porch, the words tumbling out of him faster than he seemed able to control. 12 years of buried memory finally spilling out into the open air of a town that had spent over a decade believing an entirely different story. He told her about the cold water and the desperate voice calling for help in the dark. He told her about pulling a young man out of the lake with his own 2 hands, about hiding him in an old maintenance shed near the marina, about the terror in that young man's eyes as he begged Ethan not to call anyone, insisting his father's business partner was trying to kill him to hide years of stolen company money. He told her about the 2 men who had found them before dawn, about the beating that had taken his memory along with 11 years of his own life, and about the name the young man had given him that night, gasping, terrified, moments before Ethan lost consciousness on the cold wooden planks of the North Dock. Jake. His name was Jake. Margaret stood frozen in her own doorway, listening to a stranger describe her son's voice, her son's fear, details about that terrible night that had never once appeared in any newspaper article or police report. Details that a con artist chasing her money could not possibly have known unless he had genuinely lived through them himself. 12 years of carefully guarded grief broke apart inside her chest all at once. And for the first time since the search boats had given up looking for her son's body in that lake, Margaret Callahan allowed herself to fully believe something she had never once let herself believe before. Jake had not drowned that night. Jake had been saved. Dana Reyes arrived at the house less than 20 minutes later, having driven directly there the moment Margaret finally called her. Carrying a thick folder of documents she had spent the entire previous night assembling. What she had found went far beyond the mismatched handwriting she had first noticed on the fraudulent transfer forms. Working through old banking records with a forensic accountant contact of her own, Dana had traced a series of shell companies, quietly opened and closed over the past 12 years, all of them linked back through a tangled but unmistakable chain of transactions to a single set of authorization codes. Codes that had never once belonged to Jake Callahan at all. They belonged to Warren Price. More than that, Dana had finally managed to reach Loretta Combs directly, tracking her down at a sister's house 2 towns over after days of unanswered calls. Loretta, worn down by 12 years of guilt she had never fully been able to outrun, finally told Dana everything she had spent over a decade too frightened to say out loud. She had been working the overnight shift at the marina the night Jake disappeared, and she had seen a second boat out near the North Dock that night. 2 men aboard it, moving quickly away from shore in the darkness. Days later, Warren Price had come to her personally, calm and friendly as always, and offered her a significant sum of money to simply forget she had ever seen anything at all. Terrified and desperate to provide for her own family, Loretta had taken the money and had carried the weight of that silence every single day since. With the forged signatures, the shell company records, and Loretta's testimony finally laid out together on Margaret's kitchen table, the shape of the truth Cedar Hollow had buried for 12 years became impossible to ignore any longer. Warren Price had been quietly stealing from Callahan Boat Works for years before Jake ever discovered the fraud, using his own trusted position inside the company to move stolen funds through a web of forged authorizations. When Jake found the discrepancies and confronted him privately, Warren had chosen to protect his own carefully built life rather than face the consequences of what he had done, orchestrating a plan to silence Jake permanently and pin the entire theft on a 24-year-old who had never stolen a single dollar in his life. Dana wasted no time. She called the county sheriff's office directly from Margaret's kitchen, laying out enough evidence in a single phone call to secure an emergency warrant within hours. But Warren Price had not survived 12 years of careful deception without developing a sharp instinct for exactly when his world was beginning to collapse around him. A source he had quietly cultivated years earlier inside the sheriff's office reached him minutes after Dana's call went through, warning him that the warrant was already in motion and that officers were on their way to the marina within the hour. Warren did not panic in the way most people might have expected. He had spent 12 years preparing, in some quiet, buried part of his mind, for exactly this possibility, and he moved now with the same calm, methodical precision he had used to hide his crimes in the first place. He drove straight to the marina, intending to take one of the company's fastest boats out across the lake toward a private airstrip nearly 40 miles north, a contingency plan he had quietly maintained for years without ever telling a single soul, not even his own daughter. Sophie Price had spent the past several weeks growing increasingly uneasy about her father, small details piling up in the back of her mind the way they often do for people too close to a situation to fully name what they are seeing. The secret of late-night phone calls behind his closed office door. The company archive files that kept quietly disappearing from the cabinet she managed at the front desk of the marina. The flash of genuine panic she had seen cross her father's face weeks earlier, brief but unmistakable, the very first time Ethan Walsh's name had come up at their dinner table. Sophie had told herself, over and over, that she was imagining things, that her father was simply stressed from the pressures of running the company. Some quiet part of her had never fully believed that explanation. That morning, watching her father move through the marina office with a controlled urgency she had never once seen from him before, gathering cash and documents into a single bag while avoiding her eyes entirely. The last of Sophie's doubts finally collapsed into a certainty she could no longer ignore. She followed him down to the docks at a careful distance, watching him climb aboard one of the company's boats and begin preparing to cast off. And in that single moment, standing alone on the dock her entire childhood had been built around, Sophie Price made the hardest decision of her life. She pulled out her phone and called the sheriff's office herself, her voice shaking, giving them her father's exact location before he ever had the chance to reach open water. The sheriff's deputies arrived at the marina within minutes, cutting off Warren's escape route.
Sir,
just
put your
as he
hands
was
where I can see
preparing
them.
to pull away from the dock.
Any trouble, officer?
He did not resist when they placed him under arrest, standing quietly on the same weathered planks where, 12 years earlier, he had ordered 2 men to make absolutely certain a frightened 24-year-old would never be able to tell the truth about what he had discovered. The irony of exactly where his careful, 12-year deception had finally come apart was not lost on anyone standing on that dock that morning, least of all Warren himself. In the weeks that followed, the full scope of Warren Price's crimes came into complete focus as investigators worked through over a decade of carefully hidden financial records. He was formally charged with embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice, and faced additional charges connected to the assault that had permanently altered Ethan Walsh's life 12 years earlier. Loretta Combs, having finally told the truth after over a decade of silence, cooperated fully with investigators and was not charged, her testimony recognized as essential to finally unraveling a crime that had gone unpunished for far too long. Warren Price was ultimately convicted on every major charge brought against him, the town of Cedar Hollow watching in stunned disbelief as the man who had shaken every hand at the 4th of July parade for over a decade was let out of the courthouse in handcuffs. But the most important part of this story was not finished in that courtroom. It was finished nearly 2,000 miles away, in a small, quiet fishing town along the coast of Nova Scotia, where Dana Reyes's investigation eventually led her after weeks of careful tracing through old identification records and immigration paperwork. A man had been living there quietly under a different name for over a decade, working on fishing boats, keeping almost entirely to himself, too afraid for years to ever attempt contacting the family he believed had long since given up on him and moved on. Margaret did not send anyone else to make that journey on her behalf. She booked the flight herself, 12 years of grief and unanswered questions traveling with her the entire way, uncertain, even as her plane began its descent, whether she was about to find her son or simply another painful dead end in a search that had already cost her more than she thought she had left to give. She found the small house easily enough, following the directions Dana had given her down a narrow gravel road that ended at the edge of the water, another lake, another dock, another life quietly rebuilt out of the wreckage of the one that had been stolen from him. When the door finally opened, 12 years of silence ended in a single, unbearable moment neither of them had words for. Jake Callahan stood in front of his mother for the first time in over a decade, older, weathered by years of hiding and hard, honest work, but unmistakably, undeniably her son. Neither of them said anything at first. There was nothing that needed to be said. Margaret simply stepped forward and held on to him the way she had wanted to for 12 straight years, refusing to let go, refusing to believe, even now, that this was entirely real. Jake returned to Cedar Hollow 2 weeks later, and the reunion that followed at the marina brought out nearly the entire town. The same community that had once quietly believed him guilty of a crime he never committed gathering along the docks to welcome home a son they had spent 12 years mourning for entirely the wrong reasons. Callahan Boat Works, the company Warren Price had spent over a decade quietly bleeding dry, was restructured under Jake's leadership, finally placed back into the hands it had always belonged to. And Ethan Walsh, the stranger nobody in Cedar Hollow had wanted, the man who had saved a family without even remembering he had done it, was given something in return that he had never once expected in over a decade of drifting quietly through a life that felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. Margaret offered him a permanent position at the boatworks, restoring and building the wooden boats his own two hands had clearly never forgotten how to work with, even when the rest of his mind had forgotten almost everything else. More than that, she offered him something he had not had in longer than he could remember at all: a standing seat at her table, a real place in a family that finally, fully understood exactly what this quiet, forgotten man had silently sacrificed for a boy he pulled out of a freezing lake 12 long years before anyone came looking for the truth. Ethan never fully recovered every piece of the life he lost that night on the dock. There are years of his own story he will likely never get back, questions about who he truly was before that freezing night that may simply never have answers. But sometimes the real story was never about getting everything back at all. Sometimes it is about what is quietly given to you by people who never had any obligation to give you anything in the first place. Margaret Callahan spent 12 years grieving a son the entire world had told her was gone forever, only to discover that the very man the world warned her not to trust was the one person who never lied to her at all. So we have to ask ourselves the same question the town of Cedar Hollow was eventually forced to ask. How many people walk past us every single day, quietly carrying more than we will ever know, while we are far too quick to assume the very worst about them? Would you have taken the same chance Margaret Callahan took that morning in the diner? Would you have noticed the warning signs around Warren Price before it was already far too late? Tell me what you believe you would have done in Margaret's position down in the comments below. And if this story kept you on the edge of your seat from beginning to end, wait until you hear what happens in our very next story. Subscribe now, so you never miss what is coming next.